I'm on a mission. Yes, on a mission to find how people keep well. What does it really mean to keep well? We all know why we have to keep well, don't we? How do you keep well? Today's fast-paced world means we often get caught up with the daily grind. We struggle to develop or maintain practices that help to maintain our well-being. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed by the constant demands and pressure. It's so easy to get distracted, isn't it, and end up doing exactly what we know we shouldn't be doing. Having easy to digest information to guide and remind you to keep well can make a world of difference. Consider me to be your dedicated well-being partner, cheering you to achieve big dreams and goals, which is only possible by keeping yourself well, living a happy, healthy, and meaningful life. Hello, and welcome once again to How Do You Keep Well podcast, where we share real life stories, scientific insights, and strategies on how to keep well. And today's episode is not going to be the exception. I do have a guest who is also a friend and a colleague from university, and she's going to be sharing some very interesting information on how she keeps well. But before we go on to that, we all know the saying about let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And another one we hear is you are what you eat. But you know what? Let's face it, quotes like this can sound a little in your face, especially because we already know it. And we don't need anyone to remind us that we're eating wrong. Is that correct? Yes, I get it. And to be honest, even for myself, life can get busy. We juggle a number of different personal and professional commitments, and it's quite normal to want food on the go. And to be honest, we all crave high fat, high sugar snacks, the instant coffee, instant fish and chips, and for me it's my favorite food, instant rice and dodo. And yes, indeed, there is a growing movement of healthcare professionals, doctors, dietitians, different people in the health sector who are genuinely passionate about blending the art of food and cooking with the science of medicine. And our guest today is one of them. Her passion for culinary medicine is palpable. She has deep and genuine passion for cooking from scratch. And honestly, she makes it look and sound so easy. When I grow up, I certainly want to be like her. And it's none other than Dr. Yewande Sobowale-Lafinhan. She's one of the scholars from two prestigious schools in Nigeria, Queen's College and the Premier University of Ibadan. And like I said, we attended medical school together, and she currently works there as a family physician with an interest in lifestyle and culinary medicine. She's wife to Adedapo and mom to two handsome young men. So Dr. Yewande today shares a why. I mean, she is very honest and down to earth lady. She shares a real backstory, a pivotal moment when she had to rethink and recommit herself to living a really good, healthy life. My favorite part of this conversation today was the tips and tricks she shares and the fact that she has not drank any fizzy drink for 12 years. How is that even possible? Listen for more. You will certainly be inspired to do better.
So, what actually started me off was my trying to get pregnant, eventually getting pregnant with my first boy. And I was like, you know what? There are so many bad stuff out there. And I just wanted to give him a fighting chance, at least come out healthy with as little as possible with contaminants, toxins, and all. So I had to rely on my background, what I grew up with. So I grew up with a mom who, from when we were in the university, got herself a juicer, and believe me, it was torture at that time because she would juice everything that was a plant and
Mm.
was edible, and she would make us drink it. So sometimes she would juice carrots with green pepper and juice
Wow.
juice spinach in it. So by the time she's done, the juice is green and slimy. And she's, oh, drink it. It's good for you. It's good for you. Instead of all this Coke you guys are drinking, drink this thing. And we're like, ah, Mom, this is torture. This is not nice. So a few times she'd be like, okay, because you guys like sweet things, she would put an apple, she would juice an apple or pineapple to the mix to make it easier for us to drink. So I grew up knowing that. Then, of course, she likes to eat all her vegetables raw. She doesn't even bother cooking her broccoli or cauliflower. She just slice it and she's good to go. So she did all that, of course, eating well, having salads for dinner, having things like oats and or a lot of seeds, a lot of nuts, just eating healthy, watching what she's eating. And of course, fruits were a constant in my house. So, but of course, by the time I was in the university, nobody has time to be making salad. It was the nearest buka or restaurant. Go and buy yourself a plate of rice or something, and you're good to go. So, of course, university years, maintaining that kind of lifestyle was not possible. But by the time I got married and settled down, it was easier. So that's what prompted me, like, I need to do this. These kids have to grow up knowing from when they are little the benefit of this. Because one of the benefits, at least that I noticed, was everywhere we went with my mom, it was a shock when they were told that we were her kids, not her sisters, because everybody was like, ah, mommy, your daughter, your sister, and she will look at each other like, "Ah, they are not my sisters, they are my girls." They're like, "Ah, it's a lie. You gave birth to this big girl that you don't
Wow.
look it." Even when she was doing her retirement at 60, so many of her staff came and said, if not that they came for the retirement and you retired at 60 from the civil service, they would not believe she is 60. So those are some of the
Wow.
benefits that I saw, and I'm like, you know what, I need to get in on this bandwagon pretty early and see where it takes me. So, of course, I also wanted my kids to start younger than I did and then
Mm.
make it a lifestyle. So that's where it all started.
Mm.
So it was hours and months and years of reading, research, experimenting with this, with that, that has got me where I am. So now I have the knowledge. I know what I feed my kids. I know what we don't touch
Mm.
with a 10-foot pole in my house. My kids
Mm.
don't take all this juices in bottles. I've never bought them Ribena. I've never, that kind of thing. So how did I start? When I had my first one, of course, he was still a baby on formula and stuff like that. But as soon
Mm.
as he could eat and drink, we'll chop up fruits. I would go online,
Okay.
look for organic snacks and drinks that it could
Mm.
have, finger foods like
Mm.
dried fruits, things like that. So eventually I was like,
Mm.
you know what, I can make some of these things myself. Why am I making
Mm.
Bezos even richer by ordering things from
Mm.
Amazon? So I decided, okay, so now I need to learn. So hours and hours in a day, I could spend hours on Google, just reading different people's websites, trying to get ideas.
Mm.
How did they do it?
Mm.
How can I get it done?
Mm.
So, first thing I did was
Mm.
I used to make their juice. I never bought them store bought juice
Mm.
for anything. So, whatever fruit is in season, we work
Mm.
with that. So, I'm in Nigeria. There are times mango is in
Mm.
season. So, I would just blend it, make a smoothie. Or because mango is a bit thick, I
Mm.
could also add some watermelon to make it a bit more liquid.
To loosen it up.
Yeah, to loosen it up,
Mm.
exactly. Other times it could be
Mm.
pineapple, other times it could be anything. I would squeeze oranges,
Mm.
tangerines, and I had this bottle. So what I would do is I had this pack of 10 bottles that are like maybe 300 mils. So I would juice it
Okay.
over the weekend, put everybody's own in their individual bottles and chuck in the freezer. So every morning when they are off to
Mm.
school, I'll just put one in each lunch bag. That was also
Wow.
accompanied by fruits. So they had that juice, but they
Mm.
always took fruits to school. So I would quarter
Mm.
apples, I could put in grapes. Some days I have
Yep.
none of the above, but I have tomatoes. I would rinse tomatoes for them and I will put it as their fruit because technically a tomato is a fruit, even though a lot of
It
us
is a fruit.
categorize it as a vegetable, but it is a fruit. So I say, well, it works. It's
It's
a fruit. So I rinse it and put it in there.
mm,
So gradually, my kids got to really like vegetables. They got to. So for them now, they eat tomatoes the way most people eat apples. They come up to me and say, Mom, do you have tomatoes at home? I'm like, yes, I do. Oh, can we have tomato? And
mm,
I say, go wash it. They wash it, soak it in vinegar for a bit,
mm,
and they eat. So it's about really starting them off young. But even if you
mm,
haven't, there's still hope
mm,
because I found out that there are
mm,
ways that you can hide these healthy options like these vegetables and fruits that are palatable that will make them keep asking for more. So it's about where you are in your journey. Did you
mm.
start them off like that or they are now maybe mid they are well above toddler age, maybe in the tweens,
Yep.
going to teens, and you want to start them off, it's really never too late. Even if you're in your
Mm,
50s,
mm,
it's never too late because the effect on your body, as in it, if all this while you've been on the fast food lane, fast, everything,
mm,
microwave, chuck it in, evidence has shown that if you start eating a healthier diet, like lots of fruits and vegetables, it reverses some of the years, the aging process and stuff. So even if you start at 50, even if you start at 60, there's still some of that benefit
mm,
that you can enjoy going on that you would
mm,
see.
mm.
So for my mom now, she's 77 and she can outwalk me. If we're walking together, she's so nimble,
Wow.
she's very light on her feet. And there was a day I was talking to someone. I said, you know what, growing up, I never really remembered my mom falling ill, as in ill that we would have to maybe miss school or that she would have to be in bed.
Mm,
I couldn't recall
mm,
it. I still
mm.
can't any one instance that she was ill and she was down because she chose to take care of herself. Her hair is so long, it's almost like mid back. She has
Wow.
beautiful skin. Even in her 70s, her hair is still very long, even though it's now almost all silver. But, you see the benefits are
And
there. So I
absolutely.
have
Wow.
people who stop me and they ask me, even some of my patients, or even some people I'm just, we walk by on the street, like, Doc, I like this. Your skin is so nice. What cream do you use? I said I don't put cream on my body. No cream touches my skin. I
Mm.
don't even have the time. And some say, maybe you don't want us to know the cream you are using, so we won't be looking fresh like you. I said, for real, I don't cream my body. I bathe and I wear my clothes. But I want to believe it's all
Wow.
part of what I eat. People who know me, they're like, Dr. Lafinhan,
Mm.
the way you eat, it shows on your body, it shows
Mm.
in your skin, it shows
Mm.
in your hair. Also, the benefits
Mm.
are too numerous to count, but it's doable.
Absolutely. Mm. That's what intrigues me. You've dropped so many nuggets in there, right from starting and laying good foundations with the children. And again, a lot of this is because you had a positive role model in your mom. And it's incredible the benefits, even at your young age, how you could see your mom and how she was reaping the benefits of living a good life. Because for me, that is good life when you can eat food just as God created them to be,
Oh,
nice
yeah.
and fresh. And then you are even passing that knowledge down to the next generation. I think those are two incredible things that can help people live longer. So, mom is living a happy, healthy life, and
Oh,
she's living
yeah.
a meaningful life,
Oh,
which I
yes.
find really incredible. Incredible. Now, one of the things you've mentioned was the practicality of food on the go. A lot of us still look for people who can make a lot of food for us and we just store it in the freezer. And whenever
I
we are
know.
hungry, we just defrost it very quickly. Well, I still have this food in the freezer. And for a lot of working moms, they do that. A lot of career moms and career dads, they're just quite happy to come back home. So, how do you manage that practicality of daily living, but creating a sustainable eating habit, especially where you have to make food from the scratch, which I find really incredible, Dr. Yewande. How is this possible?
Okay, so now for me, what I do is I have a food roaster. So I find out that when you
Mm,
plan your food, it's easy. You have what a
mm,
template and then you work around that. So for me, that influences my shopping list. Of course, there are sometimes I deviate, like I want to make something totally different from what is on that roster and I go out to do it. So what I do is when I go grocery shopping every week, of course my fruits are standard. So I always buy whatever fruits are in season, pineapples, watermelon, apples. So those ones are standard. But when I'm going to buy my vegetables, of course I always love my bell peppers, my green, red, yellow, peppers, orange, as nicely colored as possible. Then carrots, I
yes.
do cabbage a lot because we do quite a bit of coleslaw. So what I do is
Mm,
I prep my meals. So for example, I buy my bell peppers, I would dice it and slice it. So I have,
ready.
yes, ready. So I have a cut I use for things like noodles and spaghetti and pasta. Then I have another cut that I put in something like fried rice. So chop it
Mm,
up, cut it, and put it in the freezer. So it's done. So I do a lot of my
mm.
vegetables like that. The only thing I noticed that you can't do cabbage like that because when it comes out of the freezer, it's changed color, it has kind of
Oh,
wilted. So even my
yes.
carrots,
Yes.
I chop it up in the cuts that I want and I put it away.
Yeah.
So, for example, I
Mm,
want to make pasta or fried rice. The rice is on the fire. I just bring out the vegetables, take a handful, chuck it in there, and fried rice is done, or no, my pasta is ready. So for me, that's what I use my weekends to do. I'm not a party person. I don't condemn those who go to parties. To each their own. We all have what we are passionate
mm.
about. Some people,
What makes us tick?
yeah, some people say, I've worked all week. Weekends are for me to enjoy myself, go out, socialize. That's good. That's fine for you.
Mm,
But for me, my weekends, I'm baking, I'm cooking, just prepping for the week. So some other things I do, of course, things like stews, I can cook and put
yeah.
in the freezer. I cook my
Yes.
beans, put in the freezer. Meanwhile, I want to give you a very good tip. These are our
Yes.
oloyin beans, the honey beans. When you
Yes.
cook it
Yes.
for efforiro, the one that you put pepper and palm oil, my dear, just
Yes.
add
Yes.
a handful of lentils into it with sweet corn.
So you mix the lentil with the honey
Oh
beans. Is
yes,
that right?
oh yes. When you put it
Oh
in there,
wow. I've never thought about that.
when you put
Yeah.
it in there, because lentils has higher protein content than a lot of all these other legumes. So I always try to make sure we eat it one way or the other. When you put it in there, just like a handful or a cup into whatever
Yes.
cup of beans you are
You're
making with sweet corn, believe me, you would love it. Try it and get back to me. So things like my
I,
beans, I will cook
yes.
enough to last us the week or something, put it in the freezer. I also fry my plantain and I put in the freezer.
Really? How do
Oh
how
yeah.
that's interesting. I've never thought about putting fried plantain in the freezer because I just finish it on the go.
Okay. So me, I buy a bunch and then I fry everything. I
Mm,
fry it the way I call it half cast. So it's really light brown. So if we want to eat it, so I just fry it properly so it heats up and then it's now brown enough the way I like it. But it takes just a few more minutes once you've fried it and put it away. So I fry my plantain, I put in the freezer. I cut my yam
that is so good.
and
Okay.
put in the freezer.
Like
like
So you cut it into slices, like
slices.
you're about to cook it.
Yes, I'm about to cook it. I put it in a bowl with some water to cover it, and it's in there. And whenever I want to cook it, I just bring it out, put it in the pot. It's I cut it that morning, and it's still
Oh,
yam, very fresh. So over the years, I've just got to experiment and find out what works for me, because waking up in the morning to do school runs, cooking food for the boys, I just had to find things that make it easier. The same way sweet potatoes, we do them quite a lot. I peel it, I cut it into the slices I want. With sweet potatoes, because it oxidizes quite fast, I soak it in vinegar
mm,
for a bit and then put it
okay.
in water in a plastic in the freezer or in the fridge, depending on how soon I want to use it. And when I'm
To
ready to
use it.
fry it, to use it, I just bring it out, fry it. A few minutes is ready. So those are all the kind of tricks I have gathered over the years that make it easier for me to cook from scratch, if you can call it that way. So,
Yeah. Oh, it's certainly cooked from scratch. But I like the idea of a food roaster. I did it once and I just gave up because I just never stuck with it. But it's good to know that if you are intentional about it, you create a food roaster, but you also plan to get your groceries that fits around your food
oh
roaster.
yeah,
That makes a lot of difference.
oh yes. So even my
Mm,
chicken, my fish, anything, my poultry, I marinate it in big batches, chuck it in the freezer. I so I cook like a batch each time. It's there. So we want to eat this chicken. I just bring it out, put it in the meal, in the
and
food
cook
or the
it.
pot, and then it heats up with it. So my weekends are, how do I put it? I'm consciously working towards making my week easier for me.
Easier.
So the same way when
Mm,
I bake a batch to last us. So when I'm making
mm.
I make my own granola, I make my own yogurt. So those are all the things. I make it over the week, over the weekend, so that we have it to use during the week. So I bake my batch of muffins or brownies or banana bread or whatever and put it in the freezer. So they want to eat it in the morning for breakfast. I just bring it out
Mm,
a few minutes before and they are good to go. So for me, that's my way of cooking from scratch that I do.
mm,
Of course, there will be
mm.
some other things that, of course, you have to cook from scratch. If I want to make eba, I won't make eba, I'm chuck in the freezer. So that I just
No,
make
no,
on the go
on
when
the
I
go,
want,
like,
yes, when I need it.
mm,
But basically, I always have my freezer stocked with everything I need for the week in one form or the other,
wow,
either partially done or,
cooked.
yes, or ready to go.
That is quite humbling. Just listening to how you just plan and prepare for the week. I think that's one thing, that's a habit that can be learned and can be built on, but
Oh,
one has to be
definitely. Oh, yes,
really intentional.
intentionality is the word. You have to be
Yep.
intentional because it can be overwhelming at times. I go to the market and I have this
Mm,
big bunch of plantains staring at me, and I'm like, wow, I need to fry all this. But sometimes I do the frying in batches. Maybe if I come home early during the week and it's still
yeah.
there, I can fry a few more steaks. But
Yeah.
I just fry it and put it away. As we speak, I have plantain in my freezer. So if the
Oh,
need for plantain
please.
comes up, it's
Comes, yeah,
available.
it's good and on the go. Let's take a deep dive into like high fat, sugar, and salt in our diet
Okay.
and its consequences on our physical and mental well being. One of the examples you've given me is your mom, how she has managed to keep that healthy habit and how it's helped her immunity, it's helped her life. She's living a happy life, she's healthy, and she wasn't falling ill at all. Her skin, her hair, even yours, your skin is shining. I saw your pictures. I thought, wow.
Thank you.
and and on the mental side as well, we know a lot of food that is being given or shown on TV. They have a lot of high fats. They have a lot of sugar and a lot of salt. I just begin to worry about the influence this is having on our attitude towards homemade meals and also on our physical and mental well-being. What do you think about that,
Oh,
Dr. Yewande?
my dear, when I see some adverts or Even some foods that people buy, like people buy all sorts. They don't even care where it comes from. Then, of course, because I'm in Nigeria, and Nigeria, we is, how do I put it? We are fayegbami. Anything comes into our border. We don't have a system that works to check for quality. So I see
Mm.
some things like biscuits, and we're bringing in biscuits now from Indonesia. We're bringing in biscuits now from China, edibles, and I'm like, in
Mm.
those countries, they cut so many corners. They have so many toxins, so many poisons, and so many, because they are, somewhere like China is highly industrialized. Every now and again, you hear of
Yes, it is.
some leak of one thing or the other, even though they try to cover it. So I personally will not
Yeah.
eat food that was made in China, because I do not know what the man that
Where
imported
it's
this
coming
told
from.
them to put inside. So you
Mm.
read some, so like I said, I started reading my food labels when I was
Yeah.
when I got married, and I was intentional
Yeah.
about living the healthy life. And I told myself, you know what, anything I can't pronounce that will make me bite my tongue, I'm not eating. So you have a simple something cake, something, and
Mm.
there are so many things
Mm.
inside. I'm like, you know what, no, this is not for me. If I don't see wheat,
Mm.
sugar,
Mm.
oils,
Mm.
eggs, those kind of things,
Then
butter,
that's it.
I'm not eating.
Mm.
Anything other than that, believe
Mm.
me, is extra and I don't need it. So,
And there's a lot of preservatives, like you rightly
yes.
say, in all of this
Oh my
food.
God,
And
you will
do
be
you know what?
surprised.
I was reading a book by a doctor here in the UK, and he was talking about processed food. Now, the preservatives that they've put in this food, unfortunately, are the culprits. A lot of the
Cancers,
problems we're seeing,
yes,
especially
cancers. A
cancers,
lot of them are
obesity.
carcinogenic. Oh, yes.
Yeah, and the way he went deep into it, I was really surprised, and it was so eye opening. They are carcinogenic, but one thing he said is they are very addictive.
Oh, yeah.
So once you start eating this food that have all of these preservatives, you want more. One, because they
And
don't
you
fill
can't
you
help
up, you're still
yourself. Yeah,
hungry, you can't help yourself, you begin to crave more and
yeah,
more. So I completely agree with you that sometimes what you don't know, don't eat.
yeah. I'm not a
Mm.
scientist. I'm not a chemist. I didn't read chemical engineering or chemistry in school. So anything that I will be
Mm.
biting my tongue over, I reject. I just
Mm.
put back on the shelf for the people that want to buy it. So a lot of us are not conscious. We
Mm.
just feel, oh, I've been eating this biscuit since I was small. I've been drinking this thing since I was small. So you just grab it, or the next thing that looks similar. Now, of course, once we grow older,
Mm.
we are more independent with our money. Those things mommy didn't buy for us when we were younger, now we can buy it ourselves, and we splurge out on it, and we think we are living the life. So for a lot of people, they
Mm.
consume too much sugar, too much fat, and of course, too much salt. So,
Yes.
understanding your food labels is where you start from. You look at your food
Mm.
label, you look at the content. For me, I look at the content,
Mm.
like I said, anything that has any coloring, anything that they put flavoring, and they now start to list those
Mm.
flavorings. Believe me, I just put away. So look at
Mm.
the content of what you are eating first and foremost. Then you look at the
Mm.
nutritional information. Every good product should
Mm.
have that nutritional information on it. So you check how much
Mm.
sugar or carbohydrates is in this thing, and how much of that is
Mhm.
sugar, So you check
Mm.
it to be sure, okay, this one has a lot of sugar. I read
Mm.
somewhere that if in 100 grams of that product you have
Yeah.
25 grams and more of sugar, it's a high sugar
Yeah.
product and you should put it down. So you look
Mm.
at it,
Mm.
because they always have it in serving size or per 100 ml. So of course you have to ask
Yeah.
yourself, if in a serving size, which is 100 grams or 50 grams,
Yeah.
sugar is 15 or 20, know that you are practically eating sugar
Sugar.
when you eat that.
Mm.
Then, of course, you now move on to the
Mm.
fats. You check the daily
Mm.
allowance, you check the quantity, and you also look at the salt, because a lot of these things, they are the culprits for high blood pressure, they are the culprits for
Yeah.
diabetes, they are the
Yeah.
culprits for a lot of the cancers we are seeing now. Because I always tell people, When our grandparents were alive, most of them made it to their 80s, 90s, some even older.
Mm,
Now, a lot of our
mm,
parents can barely make it to their 70s. Why? Because
mm.
that generation was like the watershed generation. They were the ones that by them they were old enough or started working or they were independent. Things like Coca-Cola had come
Yeah.
into the country, things like all these juices, bottled drinks, bottled alcohol. So
Yes.
a lot of our parents splurged on it. Our parents used to drink.
Yes.
They were social drinkers. You go to someone's party, they will
Yeah.
give you Heineken, they will give you Star, and then Coke was available. Unlike our grandparents
Mm,
that they grew up, they didn't know what Coke was. They didn't even know what
mm, mm.
bread was. Bread became a thing by the time we got industrialized a bit that commercial bread was available. Prior to that, bread is not Nigerian food. It's not something we
Yes.
have in our local culture or cuisine that if you say, okay, you can trace it back to 200 years, we'll be making bread. When you read the Bible, the Jews have been
Mm.
making their unleavened bread, flat bread,
Unleavened bread.
the Middle East. Bread is something that
Mm,
has been part of their culture for so long, but it wasn't ours. But
mm.
adopted, we've embraced it with so much fervor now that some people can't imagine not eating bread on a daily basis.
I agree.
Meanwhile,
I
they don't
agree.
realize that bread has so much sugar, so much fat because you need
It does.
margarine or butter to, of course, the commercial people will not use
To
butter
bring it up.
because it's too expensive.
Mm.
So you have your oils, you have your
Yes.
sugar. Then, of course, they put other things to preserve it. That's why you can buy a loaf of bread and 1 week later it's still on your shelf and it looks like it was just
That's
baked
true.
today. So
That's
those
true.
are the
That's
things
true.
people need to read their
Mm.
labels first and foremost. When you read your labels, you'll be surprised the information you get. And then you can now make more informed decisions or choices that, okay, do I just want to eat this thing? Because some people have this notion that
Yeah.
it's something that will kill somebody, sha. So, hello, I will still eat my bread. All that one that you are talking for yourself, I will still drink
Give
this Coke.
yourself.
So it's about
Mm.
knowing that a lot of these things are not good for us.
Mm.
That's why the incidence of cancer in our generation is even higher than
Is
in our parents'
rise.
generation.
Mm.
And it was almost unheard of in our grandparents. So you can
Mm.
imagine
Mm.
what our children are going to face. As I speak, I know
Mm.
three children, three that close to me that I know the parents and everything that have died of cancer. One was
That,
my baby boy's classmate. She died at about 4 or 5. It was a brain tumor, like a
that's so sad.
neuroblastoma or something like that. And I know
Mm.
a number, and I'm like, when we're growing up, how many of us did we hear died of cancer? But now
No.
our kids
That's
are doing that because we've
that.
raised them with in their lunchbox they will take biscuits. In their lunchbox they will
Mm.
take Ribena or Capri Sun.
Mm.
Then they
Mm.
eat Indomie, they eat bread, they will eat rice, no vegetables or fruits in sight in that whole
Inside.
lunchbox.
Mm.
And that is every
Yeah.
day.
That's where you begin to worry. And you're right. I think industrialization brought it with it a lot of processing and
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of food. And apart from that, even the environmental
Oh
toxins.
yes.
I was reading the other day that even the soil is being used so many times and they've added so
Oh
many
yeah.
chemicals and all sorts of different things. And I think more and more, it's really important for us to be role models to our children in
Yeah.
what we eat, what we drink. And
Yeah.
for me, that's what I really draw from this conversation, how your mom was such a big influence to you and how you are even being a positive influence on your children. And hopefully we can carry on shining this light from one generation to the other, irrespective of the pressures on us due to
Yes.
industrialization to change those eating habits. Now, there's one thing I am interested in. How can we beat sweet tooth? Is it possible to beat sweet tooth at all?
Well, I would use me as an example. When I started work after I had my first child, I went back to work like full time. And I found that being in a busy clinic, stress, I would sit down in a day, I could drink like 2 bottles of Coke. And I did that for a
Mm,
year or two. And I was like, you know what? This is not getting me anywhere. But You just find that there are some days you've not even eaten. Coke is the first thing that will help you calm the hypoglycemia or the low blood sugar you are having or the headache, especially a very chilled
Mm.
one. So, you know what? I told myself,
Yes.
I need to cut this out. So, I bought dates. I would
Mm.
rinse a few, remove the seed, put it in a plastic or somewhere or a Ziploc bag. And when I decided, you know what, I'm cutting Coke out of my life, I would take that to work. Anytime I felt a bit dizzy or hypoglycemic, I would just chew on a few. And in a few minutes, my blood sugar will be back up and the headaches will subside. And I did that for a month because truly, Coke is a drug. It's a bad thing. You will
Mm.
have withdrawal
Mm.
symptoms. You will be craving it.
Mm.
You will be shaking. You will be having like
Mm.
trembles when you don't drink it.
Mm.
So I did that. I
Mm.
took fruits, dried fruits, raisins, things that were sweet that I could quickly pop into my mouth. And that's what helped me.
Mm.
And subsequently, now
Mm.
I'm almost 12 years coke free. I've not drank it in
Wow.
that time. I don't drink all these chivita, all these juices. I have no interest in them. If I go out, I drink
Mm.
water only. Occasionally, of course, I take red wine because the that thing always twists my mouth.
Mm.
Resveratrol in it is good for heart health
Yeah.
and all that. So once in a while, red wine comes in. But other than that, I'm a water drinker. Let it be the biggest party. Let Bezos invite me. I would only drink water at his party and nothing
That.
else. So that's how I overcame.
Wow.
So for some people, maybe dates are not available or they don't like raisins, you could try things like bananas, things that are sweet. Anytime you have that urge,
Mm.
just grab something sweet that is natural, and eventually you would kick
Yeah.
the habit. So it is possible. Even though I won't
Mm.
consider myself a sweet tooth, it's not like when I was young, I was the kind that we eat biscuits or we eat chocolates and stuff like that. No, I'm not. In a year, I might eat chocolates
Mm.
maybe like once or twice. Even now, the same goes for biscuits. I don't just fancy them, never really have. So I think it was easier for me to kick the habit, but it was doable, definitely.
Wow. I think that's going to be one of my New Year resolution. If there's something, anything like resolution, maybe it's a recommitment plan
Yeah.
for me. And I can see what you mean once you don't drink it, because we're doing a low sugar challenge and I haven't drank any at all. I haven't drank
Wow, that's
one
good.
because I stopped drinking Coke. I know I stopped drinking Coke a while back. Or if I have to, very occasionally, I would normally maybe drink Fanta or lemonade
Okay.
because I felt, well, that's low sugar. But since our low sugar, I've not drank any at all. And this is nearly 2, 3 weeks into it.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of
That's
myself.
good. Kudos to you.
And
Well
you
done.
know what? Thank you very much. Again, it was because you had inspired me. I heard what you talking about not drinking Coke for 12 years. And I was like, what? How is that even possible? Because for me, because I don't drink it that much, I maybe drink it maybe on a Sunday with my Sunday lunch and very occasionally during the week.
Okay.
But I found out, you know what, I will give it a try. But I can tell you it's been hard, really hard, because we still have a lot of bottles of it at home and you're
I
always
know, I can
tempted to
imagine.
put it in the fridge.
Even
Yes. And
my boys have been coke free now for 4 years. My 10-year-old, when he was
that's
6, he
incredible.
just came up to me and said, Mom, you don't drink soda. Why? I said, you guys have told you this story so many times. It has coloring, it has additives, preservatives, it has sugar, etc. And he said, okay, I won't drink soda again. And I looked at him and I was like, you are 6. I'm sure the next birthday party, you will grab yourself a
You'll be
bottle of
there.
Fanta. And a few weeks later, he had a birthday
Mm.
party. We went and I got one from him from the waiters. And I gave him and he said, Mom, but I told you I'm not drinking Coke again. And I looked at
Wow.
him, I'm like, okay,
That's
maybe there's something here. He
that's
was
good.
6.
Yes,
A few weeks later, I had
that's
another
good.
birthday and I just autopilot, I grabbed another one and I offered him. He said, Mom, but I told you I'm not drinking Coke again. I said,
That's it.
ah.
I wonder why are you tempting him with this?
So after that, I didn't even bother. I don't even bother giving him.
Mm,
So they too are soda free.
mm,
This will be his 4th year. He's soda free. And so, of course, by the time he's my age, he'll have been like 40 something years soda free, and it will be good.
That's
So, for me, I
incredible.
don't buy it in my house. If you come visit me, I will give
Mm.
you water, or if I have juice that I've just made, I will offer you some juice. But there's no soda. Nobody drinks it. We don't miss it. So,
I,
it's,
I find that really interesting because it's so easy for you to do one thing and for your children and do something else for your children, and
yeah,
maybe for visitors you do something completely different, and even when you're outside maybe in the company of a group of people you do something completely different. So there might be four or five or six different sides of your
I
habits, which
know.
which is interesting. And for me, I think what I'm learning from you is not just doing it for yourself, but imbibing those habits in your children,
Yeah.
encouraging them to make those healthy choices.
Oh, yeah.
And not just your children, even people who come to visit you at home, you are encouraging them that, well, whilst you're in my house, whilst you're in my home, this is what you're going to do.
Oh, yes, I know.
which
So
I,
I
which
have
I,
people who come to me at work and they're like, Dr. Afin, after you spoke to me about this, I've not eaten this since then. I've not eaten that. So
mm,
it's, and they tell me, it shows on your body that you don't drink this thing, or you don't eat these things that we eat.
mm,
So it's all
mm,
about walking the talk, putting in that effort.
definitely.
Sometimes it's not easy. I won't lie to you. There are some weekends
Mm,
I'm not in the mood to bake anything, but I know I have
mm,
to do it because
mm.
the other option would be to pack biscuits, Oreos, and all those kind of biscuits in their lunchbox. And I don't want to do that. So they are always my why. They are my why. They're the reason I do this. They're the reason I wake up every
That's,
day and I'm on the internet looking for recipes,
yeah,
experimenting with this
yeah.
or that to make sure they eat healthy. So I experiment a lot with different flours. So I get grains, I grind it. I try to see, okay, if I use sorghum to make my banana bread, how will it turn out? If I use tapioca flour to make
Oh,
pancakes, how will it turn out? So we try not to just rely on white flour, which is the wheat that is used commonly to
yes.
make bread. I try to mix it. So I use chickpea flour or gram flour. I just mix it a bit and see, okay, this works. This doesn't look bad. The
This
next port of
was,
call is rice
mm,
bread. I have this recipe I want to try, and let's see how it works out. So I if it comes to food, I don't have problem. You can wake me at 2 in the morning and say, and I'm hungry, and I will cook something for you. I'm that passionate
that's,
about food. So
I
for
feel,
me,
I, I
it's
think I
not a
need to
bother.
move and be, I'll come and live next to you.
No problem.
I like
No.
something. I like something you said. You said understanding your why, and I think that is really important. And for me, that helps me to clearly define my goals as well. Understanding the reason why you're doing this
Yeah,
can help you go further. Can get you up on those days where you really don't feel
I
motivated
know.
externally
I
or
know.
internally, and it keeps you going. And that's why I say to people, you know what? If you want to develop a new habit, take it one simple step at a time. Be
Yeah.
specific. Avoid vague plans. Avoid it. Just commit to it with a growth mindset. You say, I may not be the best at it right now, but I will keep going. I would learn from people. Like you said, I would read, I would research, and I would experiment.
Yeah.
I think those are three skills people can put into helping them develop a new habit. And it may well start from reading about it because
Oh,
that
yeah.
can be your goal. I want to learn more about it. And then once you start learning, your interests will begin to grow. And you know what you think about a lot would eventually grow on you.
Oh, yeah.
And you find that you begin to move more and more towards that. Wow. Thank you so much for your time, Dr.
You're very
Yewande.
welcome.
Honestly, it's been so inspiring listening to you. Thank you for your patience. I really want to just ask as we conclude that what would be your top recommendations for listeners across the world? In Nigeria, I think it's still basic. The principles are the same wherever you are. But tell me some of your own principles or some of your recommendations or maybe your why and use that to conclude for us today, Dr. Yewande.
Okay, so for me, my boys were my why. They were the ones that really, pushed me to just do better because I, being a doctor, I guess I was seeing the incidence of hypertension, diabetes. I see so many every day. You're hearing of cancer left, right, and center. And I'm like, if our generation is going through this, what is going to happen to our kids? They don't stand a chance, really. But at the end of the day,
Mm,
these diseases are going to be like catching the flu or having malaria
mm,
in
mm,
Nigeria. Cancers are going to be
mm.
like one in every, the chances or the, what do I call it? I'm looking for a word.
Incidents.
Incidence is on the
Mm,
rise. It's going to be,
mm,
unlike maybe now, maybe it's 1 in 1,000. In our kids' generation, it
mm,
might be 1 in 100 or 1 in 50. Very grim forecast for their generation. And I'm
mm,
like, you know what? I need to do better. Yes, there are so many other things that cause cancer out there, that cause disease. Like we said, there are
mm,
toxins, environmental
mm,
toxins, and things we
mm,
put on
mm,
our skin, things we come in contact with. But I just thought, you know what,
mm.
if I can reduce one more thing that would give
Yes.
them these diseases, then let me do that. Then we know
Mm,
that we keep praying and we keep trusting God for safety. But at least if I can
yes.
handle the food aspect, then it's one less thing to worry about. So
One battle one.
yeah, one
Mm,
battle one exactly. So for me, like when I started, it's not like I knew everything, but the interest was there. So I kept at it. I kept experimenting. Like I talked to you earlier about how I used to hide the vegetables in their food and just get them to eat better. So I would read,
mm,
I would go online, look for recipes, look for snacks, look for this. And eventually, of course, my retinue of recipes and things that I cook has increased
grew.
over the years. I
Mm,
keep adding this,
mm,
adding that just to make it's interesting for them so it's not boring. Like this weekend, I'm going to
mm,
make the burger patties that we talked about using lentils
mm,
and with some minced meat. And of course, my vegetables will be in there, my cabbage and my carrots and stuff, and make into a burger patty for them. And we would have a
mm,
hamburger that is 100% healthy. Okay, I can't say 100% because the meat might have fed on something, but at least it's better than what I'm going to buy in McDonald's or Burger King, definitely,
mm,
because I know
mm,
what is going in it. And then they will have a side of maybe sweet potato chips or something. So I try to make it interesting. Of course, I'm in Nigeria, so I make the most of our local foods. So we do a lot
mm.
of beans, we do yams, we do plantain. Rice is like once a week in my house. When I tell people I eat rice once a week, they look at me and like, so Dr. Lafian, what do you eat in your house? But me, rice is every day. At least we must eat rice every day in my house. So how do you do it? So I say I
Mm,
just, I mix and match. I vary it. If I make rice, it might be jollof rice this time around. Next time might be fried rice. But I try to make it interesting. So we do coleslaw. I make my own mayonnaise. I make my own salad dressing. I make my own yogurt. So for me, I guess because I'm passionate about it. So I don't see it as work anymore. I don't see it as a chore. It's just
mm,
every a normal day to me making these things. And
mm,
so
mm.
what I would
That
advise
is
people is start, like you said, baby steps. If it means, okay, I'm not going to buy bread again, which was what I did 10 years ago. I don't buy bread. I don't buy sliced bread. I bake my own bread. But then I had a
mm,
5 year old and I just had a baby. And sometimes I will ask myself, "Hey, and surely, are you okay? As in, you want to remove bread from your diet and you have, yeah, you're a nursing mom. How do you want to cope?" So even then,
mm,
I resolved that there'll be no more bread in this house because it has too much sugar, there's fat, then of course all the preservatives, the bromates, the this, the saccharin, all the sweeteners they put in it. Because some don't even use sugar. To make it sweet, they use glycerin and some of these other sweeteners that are sweeter than sugar, so they don't have to use as much. So even then, I told
mm,
myself, you know what, no bread. The only bread allowed in this house now is
Mm,
the flat bread, the unleavened bread, and it is accompanied by a salad all the time. Either it's a
mm.
vegetable salad or it's coleslaw. And then
Fruit
sometimes
salad.
yes, fruit salad, I mix it up. I make them wraps, but fruit wraps. So instead of
Mm,
vegetables, I put a bit of honey as the base. Then I put
yeah,
different
yeah,
fruits. I slice maybe kiwi, whatever I have, apples and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I make it
yeah.
into a tortilla. I wrap and they take to school.
Mm,
So I like to mix it up like
wow.
that sometimes. So it's not just vegetables. So it's about taking little steps. If the first step is, you know
Yeah.
what, I'm not buying Coke again in this house.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
don't see it, you don't drink it. Or I'm not buying bread
Yes, I
again
agree.
in this house. Or I'm not going to buy biscuit again. Okay, so now there's no biscuit.
Yeah.
What do the children take to school? It will make you think of something else. So we just need to
Mm,
start small, which was what I did. I said no bread. We don't drink Coke anyway,
yeah.
so there's no Coke. So everybody should start somewhere and then build on that.
Somewhere.
And when you do that, you look back in a few months or a few years and you're like, you know what? We've not bought bread in this house or we've not bought biscuits in this house in so long. And you see that you are making
Yes.
progress.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Yewande. So, from me, take little steps, be intentional, prep, read,
Exactly.
research, experiment as much as you can, make use
Yes.
of seasonal food where you can, and be
Yes.
creative with food.
Oh,
I
yes.
think those are really important points that you have raised today, and I'm just so grateful. Honestly, I wish I could go on with you.
Same
we have
here.
we we have to do part two, and I'm going to come and we're going to video you. I hope so, and then we will make some food together and show people how to do it. But before then, I want you to start doing that for us and teaching us how to make these patties that you've talked about.
Oh,
They sound
I'm,
so
I'm
yummy.
making some this. I'm making some this evening, so maybe I'll do a small video of it
Yes,
and
please
show people.
make a small video. Yes, please make it and show us how you are eating it and enjoying
Oh,
it.
definitely, I'll do that. It was really
Thank
nice
you so much,
being on
Dr.
this
Yewande.
program. I really appreciate it. I really,
Thanks.
really appreciate it. So I'm hoping that I've been
I
able
have.
to make a difference in somebody's life. It just starts with one person, and
Absolutely.
you keep moving on, you keep moving on. Like I said, I like to experiment. I'm the kind that if I know anybody
Yes.
traveling, I don't ask for clothes or shoes. I tell them, please help me buy quinoa, help me buy things like that. So my boys know quinoa. They're in Nigeria and
Mm,
they eat quinoa. And I have colleagues who are like, please, what's this you are eating?
incredible.
And I'm like, it's called quinoa. And I'm like, okay. So for me, I'm very passionate about
mm,
food. It's all about
about
food
it.
all the time and how to make it interesting. My goal is to harness our local foods and make it in such a way that people go back to it. We enrich it. We make them realize these things are very good for you. And
Yes.
hopefully that will solve malnutrition and so many things that we have these days.
On Definitely. Oh, thank you so much. On that note, Dr. Yewande, I really hope and pray that some of these dreams, these goals, these visions you have will come to pass. And by the time I'm inviting you again, we're going to be looking at it and say, remember when you said this?
I
Thank you
know.
so much for
You're very
joining us
welcome.
this morning.
You're
And
very
I can assure
welcome.
you, my listeners from all over the world, wherever they are, would, I'm sure, learn something. And if anything, just the passion with which you talk about food would inspire us to try better. And even if it's just 1% better,
Yeah.
I think that would have made a lot of difference. So thank you so
Yes.
much. And thank you, my listeners, for keeping with us to the very end. Let's give Dr. Yohan a round of applause wherever you are. And
Thank you.
a lot of thank yous from your messages. So, my dear listeners, it's the end of another episode. I do hope you keep in touch and join us again for our next episode. Take care. Bye.
Bye.